I'm going to explain how I digitised my Simpsons collection, so that now I can watch any episode I want on different devices and just stick a random episode on at the click of a button. So a bit of a different video today, non-gaming related. I understand if you've just stumbled across this video and want me to get right into the tutorial, so just use the timestamp to skip straight to that. But if not, indulge me while I waffle on for a bit on why I wanted to do this. I love The Simpsons. Not a hugely controversial statement. It's also not very controversial to say I only loved the Golden Age, which to me is seasons 1 to 9. A lot of people don't count season 1 in that Golden Age and say it only got really good in like season 3. I can't deny like season 3, 4, 5 is absolute peak. I think season 4 in particular is probably the best series of television of all time. They're so dense and packed with funny moments, but I f***ing love season 1 too. It probably is a bit of nostalgia speaking because here in the UK we only started getting The Simpsons on free telly in 1996 when BBC Two started showing one episode per week on a Saturday tea time. Before that, my only access to The Simpsons was these videos I used to rent with a whopping 2 episodes per tape. And these were just random episodes from seasons 1 or 2, so early episodes really mean a lot to me, but as the years went on, we'd get it weekly or twice a week on free TV, which I'd record and re-watch over and over. Then in 97 in my house we got Sky, so then I'd get a couple of episodes every day. So after watching for years on BBC Two, later Sky 1 and Channel 4, through the 90s and early 2000s, I'd seen every great episode multiple times. Then in the early 2000s they started releasing proper DVD box sets, which I would buy and watch on my PS2. Fantastic. But obviously the world has changed quite a lot since then. A lot of people don't have DVD players anymore, or they're at least not plugged in. I actually do still have my PS3 hooked up just to watch DVDs and sometimes Blu-rays. The last few months I've been watching American Dad with my dinner every day, from season 1 through to 14, which is when they stopped making DVDs for that show. But what if my PS3 gets to a yellow light of death, like my old one did back in 2010? I don't really want to buy another one. And it's unlikely, but disc rot might occur too. Some people predict DVDs might only last for around 30 years, and these Simpsons DVDs are getting up there in age, although it's much more likely it's going to be closer to 100 years. And we've been killed by convenience a bit these days too. Most of the time, I don't really feel like getting a DVD, checking which episodes are on it, sitting through the logos, and then putting the episode on. That's why we all just stream nowadays, isn't it? And streaming's very convenient, but it's not all that great. I don't know any people who have a Netflix, Amazon, Disney, HBO and Apple subscriptions all going at the same time. Most people might have 1 or 2 and then switch from month to month if there's something else they want to watch. And within the last few years, unless you're a billionaire, you need to sit through adverts too. And of course, since Disney bought Fox, you can watch every Simpsons on Disney+, which is fine. But first of all, you never know. What if Fox end up splitting from Disney and launch their own separate service that you need to pay for? What if Netflix bought The Simpsons? What if your favourite episode from 1992 is suddenly deemed too offensive for modern audiences and is altered or taken off entirely? And even if none of that happened, to me, The Simpsons is one of those shows I don't really want to watch in sequential order, or even pick out a specific episode. Part of the fun is watching for the first couple of minutes and figuring out which one it is you're watching. It's one of those shows you just want to stick on. And ever since these streaming services launched, I've never understood why you can't just go to a show and hit a shuffle button and you just watch a random episode, like you would for a band on Spotify when you want to shuffle their whole discography. But even if that was there, that wouldn't work for The Simpsons. The sad fact is, nowadays, around 3/4 of The Simpsons episodes are god awful. Imagine hitting shuffle in the mood to watch something like Lisa the Greek and you end up with some modern day monstrosity about Bart being a manosphere incel. And I wish I was making that up.
He's gonna grow up to be an incel, or a sexist jerk, or a manosphere guru.
Same thing happens when The Simpsons is on the telly nowadays. Sometimes on a Sunday morning I'll see Simpsons is on TV, see which one it is, and it's such a rare treat when it's one you actually like. Chances are, let's see here, Dr. Frink is launching a cryptocurrency. Yeah, seems about right. So I wanted something to recreate and improve on that 90s experience of a random Simpsons episode just being on and knowing it would be a good one. I've been meaning to sort this out for years and properly digitise my Simpsons collection, but I'd always hit a small roadblock and give up. But then I started seeing these things advertised on like Facebook and Instagram. A small Simpsons telly with all the golden age on it, which would shuffle all episodes at the touch of a button. It's a Raspberry Pi motherboard connected to a small screen with an SD card inside it, containing all the episodes encased in a 3D printed Simpsons telly. Very cool. But I thought, I've already got all the episodes I want, I don't want to pay over £100 for this thing. And secondly, that screen's pretty small, it's only about the size of a phone screen. I couldn't really see myself sitting down and actually watching it. This isn't a particularly novel or technical solution, it's something I'll probably want to develop further somewhere down the line, but it's just something you could probably do on your PC today, and maybe some other devices too, and it shouldn't cost you too much, if anything at all. Now look, I get it, I'm sure you could somehow get these Simpsons episodes elsewhere, but for us good honest folk who bought these DVDs with our hard earned money, it's nice to still get some use out of them, and we're also safe in the knowledge that these are going to be quality, uncut episodes, no logos, idents or adverts, but feel free to skip this section and the timestamps if you already have the episodes on your computer. Actually, the legality of this whole thing is probably a bit shady. This is strictly me making backups of my own DVDs for my personal use. I'm not selling or sharing anything, and I think I know the difference between right and wrong. I don't think what I'm doing is wrong. I do think it's wrong that I bought Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Edition on the PS3 back in 2009, had it installed on my system this whole time, and now I suddenly can't play it. I think it's wrong that I bought an episode of American Dad when the PS4 came out to see what the media player was like, and I can't watch that anymore either. So, ripping discs. The first thing we need to do is rip our DVDs onto our PC. You'll need a computer with a disk drive. If not, you'll need to buy an external drive like I did. I got this one initially to rip my PS2 games to play on PCSX2, but then I thought I could use it for this too. These are only about £15 off Amazon, and technically I got this one for free because it came with a scratch card, and in that scratch card I actually won a second external drive, and who really needs two external USB disk drives, so when I got the one I won, I just returned that one to Amazon and got my £15 back. Ripping the DVD is always what I had problems with in the past. I tried Make MKV, which seems to be the standard that most people use, but I just couldn't get past these Simpsons discs copyright protection. But after lots of trial and error, I finally found this free program, DVD Decrypter, which worked a treat for the most part. So this is the software we'll use to rip our discs. Make MKV might work for you. I tried it with just a film DVD and it seemed to work fine, but particularly for those early Simpsons seasons, it just didn't work for me. Ripping the discs does take a while, about half an hour per disc or 2 hours per series. Obviously quite tedious, but what can you do? So I did this over the course of a few days, doing one series at a time. The only time I had a bit of trouble was Series 9 Disc 3. DVD Decrypter kept failing to read this one file, and then I tried Make MKV, which actually seemed to work better compared to early seasons, but that couldn't read this episode either, but it would write the rest of the disc. The file itself was the episode where Bart becomes friends with Ralph Wiggum. I guess there must have just been some invisible scratch or damage on that part of the disc, so instead I just played the DVD itself on VLC player and hit Alt F9 to record my screen. About halfway through the episode it did freeze, so I had to go back and skip ahead about 20 seconds and carry on recording and then stitch it together in DaVinci. So yeah, one episode is missing about 20 seconds, one blemish. But it's not one of my favourite episodes to be honest. Season 9 does have some classics, but you could see that it was starting to slip a bit. Once I'd ripped a full series, I would then go into another program called Handbrake to compress the files. Because when you're ripping from the DVD, each episode comes in at about a gigabyte, and that's really not necessary for The Simpsons. I mean, part of the charm is that lo-fi fuzzy quality to it. It'd be different if I was ripping a Blu-ray of something like Terminator 2 when you want the highest quality possible, but that's not really the case here. It turns each episode from a gigabyte into about 230 megabyte. So this whole Golden Age collection will come in at around just under 50 gigabyte. That's about the size of a normal game about 10 years ago, but nowadays it's about a third of the size of a modern AAA game like FF7 Rebirth, so not bad really. When you rip a disc with DVD Decrypter, it will create a folder per disc. So I would drag the folder into Handbrake here, check everything's there, and then go to Add Selection, because a lot of these video files will be things like DVD extras and menu transitions, which I'm not really bothering with. If I really want to watch the extras, I've still got the DVDs after all. So you'll select every file that's about 20 minutes long, which will be the episodes themselves, and then add to queue. I did try and be a bit fly and only rip the episodes from the disc on DVD Decrypter itself and leave out the smaller files, but that messed everything up because I think some of these smaller files are some sort of config files which control everything, so I think you're best off just ripping the disc as it is, compressing the ones you want in Handbrake, which creates new versions of them, and then delete the raw rip. This does get a bit fiddly, particularly in later seasons. You'll see some duplicates of the same episode, which I think are maybe different angles, even though obviously they're not actual camera angles like they did on those old Slipknot and Metallica concerts. But what I would tend to do here is basically have the DVD booklet right there beside me, check the preview here, match the episode I was looking for, and then just add the episode to the queue one by one until I had all the episodes on that disc. So yeah, ripping DVDs really isn't as straightforward as dragging and dropping the files from disk to Windows Explorer. Before you add anything to the queue, I'll leave the settings here that I'm using for Handbrake on the screen, so pause here if you need to. Resolution at 480p, encoder tune set to animation. I also removed the other audio options and subtitle tracks. Obviously, if you want to keep the commentaries and subtitles, leave these alone, but it will take a bit longer. I say that, but initially I didn't include commentaries as this was my first time doing this and I wanted to keep things simple, and I was worried it would maybe create 2 different video files per episode and double the space and time taken. But then I realised it does just add a separate audio track onto your video file. It's about 20 megabyte extra per episode, which will total between 4 and 6 gigabyte for all episodes from seasons 1 to 9, so it's totally worth it actually. So I started doing that from season 6 onwards. And obviously I wish I'd done this for all episodes now, but I guess if I'm really desperate I could go back and do seasons 1 to 5 again. I did notice when I was watching back on a bigger screen, the backgrounds could look a tiny bit blocky, and I found reducing the RF size from 21 to about 18 in the video tab here did help, with the trade-off being bigger file size and longer time to process. But yeah, if I was to start over again, I would probably use those settings. You'd never notice on a smaller screen though. Then I'd save this as a preset so I don't need to do it again when I put in a different disc. Then I'll go to Tools, Preferences, and drag creation time into the file format here, so it'll append a creation time into the file name, which should ensure the episodes are in order when you're in Windows Explorer, providing you did the discs in the right order in Handbrake. Before I hit start queue, I'll do the same for the other discs in that series. So once the queue has all 20 odd episodes from the series in there, I'll start the queue so they can just all go at once, and I can go off and do something else. If you're on the ball, you could start burning the next season in DVD Decrypter while Handbrake is compressing the current one to save you some time, but you do risk getting mixed up and accidentally deleting or duplicating something. So I made this folder called Shows in my D drive with the Simpsons in it. I'll explain why I didn't just make a Simpsons folder later. And then I've made a folder per season. Once Handbrake has made these new compressed files, they'll be put in the Simpsons folder. So I'll drag the episodes here into the right folder and then start renaming them, which isn't necessary, but obviously if you do want to watch a specific episode, it's handy. Renaming is a bit of a pain. There are tools you can use that scrapes the files and names it for you, but they either cost money or I just couldn't figure out how to use them. It's not the end of the world though, just pull up IMDb next to your Windows Explorer and you'll be done in a few minutes. If you're wondering why my thumbnails are all different and not just taken from the intro, I use a program called Icarus, which changes all my MP4 thumbnails into a screenshot from 25% into the video, which I really like, so all my thumbnails look different. I would prefix my files with the season and episode number, so S01E01, so that even if I put every episode in the one folder, they'd still be in the right order, as long as I sorted them alphabetically. And I know you don't need me to tell you how to name files, but I always found it helpful to, copy and paste SO2E and then manually type the episode number in the title. So once all that is done, 9 series later, congratulations, you now have The Simpsons Golden Age on your PC. You can pick a series and watch any episode you want. But we're not leaving it there. Like I said, I wanted to replicate the feeling of just sticking The Simpsons on. I wanted to play a random episode at the push of a button. So to do that, we need to create a command file in Notepad. Don't worry, you don't need to know how or why this works, just know that it works. I've included the file below. I use Notepad++ because it's colour coded and makes me feel more intelligent. Also, when I did try this on normal Notepad, it didn't work until I turned word wrap off, so I just like the way it looks here. The only thing from my file you would have to change is this line here and point it to wherever you've saved your episodes. Don't worry, it will search within subfolders too, so you don't have to have all your files in one flat folder. All this command is doing is essentially creating a playlist of every file in this folder and then launching it in VLC Player with random, loop and full screen turned on. I actually had to go through a few extra hoops to get this working through Retrobat, which is what I used to play my old games on, because Emulation Station was interfering with it somehow, so I had to create a PowerShell file and then a command file to run that PowerShell. I've included them too, but don't worry about it if you just want this to run on your PC. But just having a command file in Windows Explorer is a bit cold and sterile, isn't it? I wanted to go just that extra mile, so I created a shortcut and then gave it an icon. I've always loved this wee jig Homer does at the end of Homer's Odyssey, so I screenshotted it. I went into Infinity and removed the background. Infinity's a really good free alternative to Photoshop, by the way. And I saved that as a PNG. Then I went over to iconconverter.com, used the 32-bit depth that gives you transparency, changed it to an icon, and then right-clicked on the shortcut, Properties, Change Icon, browse and then locate that image, and there you go. It only works on the shortcut, not the actual file, and it has to be an icon file. Finally, I pinned that new shortcut to the taskbar, click on Homer, and there we go. A random Golden Age Simpsons episode. You can still skip between chapters too. And if I go into the next episode, you'll see it's another totally random one. I also turned off VLC putting the file name at the bottom because I didn't want to immediately see which episode it was. I'm trying to make it feel like I'm not just watching a video file. Like I said, I also got this working through Retrobat. If I put the command file in the Windows folder of Retrobat, it'll think it's a game too. So here's that picture again, just as a normal PNG in amongst my modded PC games. So if you're just interested in watching on PC, that's that. And of course, if you put all your episodes and this command file on a USB or SD card, it'll work anywhere. You would maybe just need to change the folder location in that command file, and obviously ensure whatever's running it has VLC Player installed. But if we wanted to watch on more devices, we'll use our PC as a media server. The caveat for using it as a media server is that your PC will need to be turned on at any time you want to watch for it to work. I had heard of Plex before, which I understand lets you use your PC as a server and it turns your local media into your own Netflix, but I discovered it started to include a paid version or a free one where you have to watch adverts. Paying or watching ads on your DVDs that you already bought? Absolutely fuck that. But then I found a free alternative, Jellyfin. So you go on to jellyfin.org and you can play about with the demo to get an idea of what it's going to be like. But you create an account, download the software and then launch it. It'll open in a tab in your browser, and now this is your own server hosting files locally on your PC. What you want to do is add a media library. Click Add Media Library, content type Shows, click the plus icon and choose your Simpsons folder, right? No! This is why I created the Shows folder in Explorer. See, if I get it to look directly in the Simpsons folder, it thinks S1, S2 and so on are actual shows, not seasons of shows, so I got this weird result. But when I point it to my Shows folder in Windows, it recognises my Simpsons folder and then seasons within that folder. And there we go. Now you can see it's got artwork and descriptions for the episodes too, just like Netflix. Pretty cool, eh? Well, yeah, but I don't like that garish HD artwork it's got for the episodes, seasons and backgrounds. Well, the cool thing here is that you can change that. You can add your own artwork, but it's got some good alternatives in its own database. So I've swapped the show artwork and background to a much more 90s Simpsons style, and I've changed the series artwork to those old DVD box sets. That's much more like it. Now it feels like the show I know and love. And the reason we go on Jellyfish is that it runs on loads of things like Android TVs, Fire Stick, Roku Box, Apple TV, Xbox. So you just download the app on your device, I'm using my Fire Stick here, and the server that you set up on your PC should appear here. Go to add account and log in using the username and password that you set up, and bang, there you go. Your PC shows on your telly. You really feel the benefit of changing that artwork back to those old designs when you look at it here. And obviously, the reason we're doing this, it has a shuffle all feature. It even has a shuffle feature within seasons, which is great. And chapters are included too. And if I go to the next episode, another completely random one. The only drawback is that you do sometimes see the episode title at the start, but I don't know, just look away for the first few seconds if that bothers you. Now, as far as I can tell, you do need to name and number your episodes correctly for Jellyfin to get this metadata. I tested out not changing the file names at all, and then I tried just naming the episode, for example SO3E05, but that didn't work. I had to make it SO3E05 Homer defined for Jellyfin to get that metadata. And there you go. Any random Golden Age Simpsons episode at the click of a button on your PC or nicely organised on Jellyfin, both of which exclude 75% of the show's checkered past. And of course, this is just an example. I'll probably just stick with The Simpsons for hard drive space reasons, but it would be nice to do the same for South Park. Just like The Simpsons, I think most South Park episodes past like series 9 or so go from okay to downright terrible, but I do love the first few seasons. It'd be nice to have like my music DVDs on there too, but that's a bit unrealistic at the moment. I've seen some crazy setups on YouTube. Some guys have their TV playing a bunch of 90s shows and they'll have them programmed on different playlists which will automatically change depending on the time of day. So it might show something like Turtles or Rugrats in the morning, in the evening The Simpsons, and then at night something like Friends or old WWF. That's a bit out of my reach, but certainly a cool idea. Some people have even built fully functional cable boxes, it's crazy. Ideally, what I'd like to have is a kind of halfway point between my current setup and that all-in-one mini TV. I'd like to have something like a Raspberry Pi mini PC with an SD card in it with all these episodes, hooked up to an old CRT telly. But besides the fact that CR tellies just seem to be getting more and more expensive, I don't have a spare room in my flat. There's really only my living room and my bedroom. I like to keep my bedroom fairly boring and tech free, and I feel like having a CRT alongside my PC and my normal telly in my living room maybe crosses a bit of a line. A lot like how I'd love to have a steering wheel and the pedals to play driving games with. Yeah, I feel that also crosses a line. There's no going back from that, is there? But let me know if this video has inspired you to do this yourself, or if you just enjoyed seeing the process. Let me know if you liked a different kind of video. And the best thing you can do is simply leave a like or share, because that really does help with the channel's visibility, so I hear. Thanks for watching.